going to begin with our prelude.
Good afternoon and welcome to Community Church for our special Easter Sunday service. Today's service is an all-ages worship service. We welcome the presence of children and youth among us. And we also have a special treat, which is that our community choir is joined together with our professional choir for today's service. Thank you all so much. Whether you are joining us online or in person, you are welcome here. Now I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join together in singing hymn number 38, Morning Has Broken.
Morning has broken like the
is so good to see you all here. It is a wonderful Easter afternoon. I'm going to admit I'm really used to the Easter morning thing, so I'm practicing saying happy Easter afternoon. It's great to have you all in this beautiful space at this particularly gorgeous moment. Thank you for being here. This is, of course, a multi-generational service, and I'm thrilled that all of the children have decided to sit together, which for me is a joy, including my own kid. And if I keep talking about him, he's never coming back, so we'll see how this works. Let's start. Easter is the holiday everyone needs all the time and right now. It is a story of love larger and stronger than death, of love larger and stronger than fear, a love so deep and wide it inspired generations to hope for the impossible, for an infusion of the unexpected, to prepare for the glorious, to bask in the joy of happy endings. We're here today to celebrate being alive and the promise that love never dies. Megan and Carrie will light our chalice.
Please join with me in our chalice lighting words printed in your order of service. We light this candle, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in our community, and in the world. And now our unison affirmation spoken together. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom, and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community. Unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts.
Please join me now in our land acknowledgement. We are gathered on the unceded land of the Lenape peoples. We acknowledge the Lenape community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. Community Church of New York also acknowledges that it was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples, including those on whose land this institution is located. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. Thank you. And now it is time for us to greet our neighbors on this glorious Easter day.
All right, everyone, back to your seats. It's so good to see you. Thank you. Come on. Back to your seats. There'll be more time for fun and frolic later. This is our time to enter a prayerful space. For many of us, prayerful spaces are quiet. And in this church, often, prayerful spaces are quiet. But sometimes prayerful spaces have some noise. Sometimes there are babies crying or people shuffling or talking to each other. That's also prayerful space. It is all welcome. Let's begin. Spirit of life, she who animates and enlivens us, she who calls us back to the living again and again, we thank you for the turning of the season, for the trees in bloom and the birds singing in their nests. We are grateful that the cold of winter is beginning to subside and the earth, our beloved mother, is bringing us back around again in this never-ending cycle of life. On this Easter afternoon, we are grateful for all the reminders that love never dies, that life is beautiful, powerful, and always in a state of renewal. We come to this time of prayer both in gratitude and in hope. We are holding too many worries, and we bring our collective desire to bear, hoping our words and our longing will be woven into the prayer of so many other people who pray in this space, in this city, on this planet, that we together might shift the current course. We hold up our collective desire for peace in Europe. We remember refugees around the world looking for somewhere to call home. We do not forget the people of Tigray of Ethiopia or the Uyghurs in China. We hold in prayer all the people who are afraid or alone, those who are grieving, those who are sick, those who are caring for them. We remember especially our beloved Eve Hazel, lost but held in love and gratitude for her kindness, gentleness, and faithfulness to this church. We remember today Catherine Child, who is recovering from a brain injury, and Kathy Moss, who is battling cancer. On this Easter morning, we remember all of those who are struggling, and we pray in gratitude and in hope for the turning and the changing and all the ways love will break through. And together we say, Amen. Thank you, that was beautiful. Today's reading is being done by a whole bunch of people, so can I ask all those people to come up in line in order over this way?
Jesus was a great teacher long, long ago who preached God's love. Jesus taught that we should care for the poor, and forgive people who hurt us. In his lifetime, Jesus influenced many people to love one another. 12 of these people were called the disciples of Jesus. They traveled with Jesus and listened to him preach.
In Jesus' time, some Roman and some Jewish leaders did not like him. They were afraid that he would lead a rebellion and upset the way things were. As Jesus became more popular, the leaders wanted to get rid of him, and they knew killing him was the only way to keep him quiet. One of Jesus' disciples, named Judas, betrayed Jesus and helped the leaders with their plan.
The night before Jesus died, he was celebrating the Jewish holiday of Passover. He celebrated a Seder with his closest friends, and the next day Jesus was arrested, and then he was killed.
The people who followed Jesus were brokenhearted after he died. They struggled to understand why God had allowed their teacher to be killed. Surely someone so connected to God, so overflowing in goodness, did not deserve the punishment of a criminal or rebel. As these people gathered day after day in each other's homes, they began to recall the wonderful experiences they had had with Jesus. They told one another of times when Jesus was wise and times when Jesus was kind. The very tone of his voice and the look on his face would come back to them so vividly that it seemed sometimes as though Jesus were right there with them.
Some of the people were sure they saw him. They said they were walking with him, that he visited them at home. News spread that Jesus had come out of his tomb, that some of his friends had spoken with him and had even touched him to know that he was real.
Finally, several of them thought they saw Jesus rise up from earth, higher and higher, until he disappeared entirely. They believed he had gone to heaven to be with God, who he called Father. People believed that Jesus was different from other people, that he was so holy and great that he would come back to earth and save the world.
The years passed by. The people who knew Jesus died. Generations passed, but Jesus did not come back. It had been over 2,000 years, and Jesus still had not come back. There are those who still hope he will return.
Others believe that this Jesus never again would live on earth. His body is not coming back, but his spirit never needs to die. His words and deeds still live with us and give us wisdom today. Jesus told us to treat people well, to love each other, to welcome each other even when people seem different. He told us especially to care for the lonely, the sick, and the poor.
When someone's body physically dies, the people around them who loved and valued them keep their memory alive, just like the followers of Jesus have remembered his teachings and his spirit long after his death.
Every year we remember the life and death of Jesus, and we celebrate resurrection each spring. We remember what he taught, and we remember that sometimes people are afraid of being told to do things differently than they were done before. We remember that threatened people can behave badly, but that no matter how sad or frightening it all seems, spring returns every year, and life returns, and earth reawakens. And every year, we are reminded that no matter how sad we feel, love never dies.
Thank you, choir. That was spectacular. Easter has always been a special holiday for me. I have fond memories of waking up with my siblings at the crack of dawn, hunting for the Easter basket with my name on it, and eating the sweet treats. My parents were good Catholics, so a few hours later, with all of us on a sugar high, they'd get us into nice clothes and take us off to church, where we would hear some version of the Christian Easter story. Then we would return home and share a special Easter meal. As I grew older, I joined the choir, and I had the opportunity to sing in various Easter services. The service I remember most was the Easter Vigil service. Most regular services were under an hour long, but the Easter Vigil service, held on the night before Easter, was at least 3 hours long. The complete story of the Passion of Jesus was told in at least 9 separate readings. It was a long time to be sitting still, but there was also something mystical about this particular worship service that I remember to this day. Larger U.S. culture, dominated by Christian theology and practice, by and large denies death, or at least doesn't like to talk about it. Easter is one time death is talked about openly. Easter itself focuses on the resurrection of Jesus, what the Apostle Paul later framed as God's victory over death. But the week leading up to Easter focuses on Jesus' arrival in Jerusalem with full knowledge that he would suffer and be killed. Holy Week focuses on Jesus' last moments with his beloved disciples, even the one who would betray him. And it focuses on his trial, his persecution, and eventual crucifixion. I don't consider myself a Christian now, although I am a big fan of what people claim Jesus said and did. Easter is a holiday of hope. For Christians, there is hope to be found in the death and resurrection of Jesus. For me, what gives me hope in the Easter story is the power of sacrifice. Jesus, with full knowledge of the suffering that was to come, felt strongly enough in the benefits to be offered to others by his sacrifice that he voluntarily submitted to his fate. Divine intervention aside, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, this kind of sacrifice has occurred in many ways since the time of Jesus. Many others, while not killed, suffered greatly for their devotion to right action and speech. Nelson Mandela in South Africa, Chief Joseph on the Colville Reservation, Loujain al-Khalil in Saudi Arabia, just to name a few. I want to make it clear, I am not saying that giving up one's life or risking imprisonment is the only way or even a desirable way to make sacrifice in the service of the greater good. We are called by our Unitarian Universalist faith, however, to think about ways we can step out of our comfort zones and take action in service of justice and equity, to create beloved community. To me, the lesson of Easter is how we create hope in our own lives through sacrifice, through working together act by act, even though some of these acts might be uncomfortable. For in community, the sacrifices we make together towards the greater good will indeed become our collective salvation.
Thank you, Carrie. The lessons of Easter. The once welcome stranger, the once celebrated stranger, Jesus. In the Bible, the week before Jesus is killed, he triumphantly enters Jerusalem, welcomed by the people who are waving palm fronds. By some, he's believed to be a leader who will free the Jewish people from Roman rule. By others, he's seen as a great spiritual teacher and healer. And we are reminded each year of the Christian belief that we find Christ in the stranger, in each other, in people we know and love, and in people who are distant and unknown. It also reminds us that in mainstream society, we often hear folks fixate on the powerful, kingly Jesus, who will come in glory and power. But that's not the Jesus in this story. We can make a mistake by loving the idea of the powerful Messiah more than the humble Jesus who gave up power or used his power to help the weak and the forgotten. His ministry was to humanity at its most vulnerable. Shortly after he arrives, he goes to the temple to pray, and finds that there are money changers in the temple profiting off the changing of Roman coin to Jewish coin. That might not make a lot of sense to us today. The tradition was to sacrifice 2 doves at the temple, and because it was too hard to travel with live doves from the outer reaches of Judea, there was a strong local business of selling doves once pilgrims arrived at the temple. And the money changers were needed because the Romans only allowed Roman coin to be used for payments in Jerusalem. But the Jewish law required the sacrifice to be made in shekels, what the Jews coined themselves. It may not seem like a big deal to us today, but historically this wound up taking advantage of the poor and the downtrodden through cost of high fees. One could easily imagine Jesus today's reaction to ATM overdraft fees for the poor, which are crippling. Jesus winds up in the story flipping over the tables of the money changers in anger for their abuse of power. And I remember that's a lesson I remember. Sometimes it's appropriate to flip tables. Jesus is confronted about this outburst the next day, and through a series of events throughout the week where Jesus challenges the systems of oppression under Roman rule, is charged with treason and killed. In the Christian faith, his death and later resurrection are signs of God's grace and forgiveness of mankind's sins. But in most progressive Christian churches, it is also important to remember why Jesus was killed, executed. Because he chose to side with the weak, the poor, and the outcasts against the Roman government. I found the story of Easter to be powerful and transformative. I still do. I believe it has a depth of meaning that can point us back on the right path when we trip up. There's a challenge of Palm Sunday, the week before, when this healer and teacher was greeted with fanfare and waving of palms to remember a time when we have spoken or acted with fanfare for his message and teachings of compassion and forgiveness and charity. But we forget that when in our daily lives, it's hard to deal with the needs of the world or the flipping of the tables and Jesus' alignment with those who are most in need. In a world where a lot of people allow greed to win over compassion, it's life-saving to have a message that teaches otherwise. Oppression, discrimination, bigotry are always on the wrong side of history, and they're always on the wrong side of the gospel message. But Easter is not solely this social justice message. It's not solely the spiritual message of salvation and grace. Easter is also a story that lays the bedrock for community. Communities are built upon lessons of compassion and concern. Communities are well-founded when power and privilege do not become the rule of law, and the virtue of forgiveness is critical if we ever hope to enter back into the community after another wrong is committed. Religions make central these teachings because these truths are central to life. They must be told again and again. Happy Easter. May this day remind us of the commitments we have faithfully made and help bring about a world that is worthy of the trust we have been given.
In everything that I am, you said I was straight. I thought was good about me, wanted to change. When I return, I fly like a bright butterfly with my wings of all colors. I will float through the sky. I'll be someone I recognize, not that lost lonely soul in that awful disguise. I'll be till my face you forget. I'll become the real me. I will have no regret. I won't care who is proud, who is not. I'll become a whole person, not a soul left to rot. Thought I could wear this mask all my life. I was wrong. When the light hits my face, you'll hear me sing a new song. And when I return, I'll fly like a bright butterfly with my wings of all colors. I will float through the sky, and I'll be someone I recognize, not that lost lonely soul in that awful disguise. Through the sky like a bright butterfly, I will drift on the leaves, make the world say, oh my. I will be all the things that I want to be. I don't care if you hate all the things that you see. I will let my light shine. I will hold my head high. I will give and receive all the love I can find. No more hiding away, no more living inside. I will walk through this world with hope and with pride, and I'll fly like a bright butterfly with my wings of all colors. I will float through the sky, and I'll be someone I recognize, not that lost lonely soul in that awful disguise.
May you be all the things that you wish to be. Thank you. Amen. So in reflecting on Easter, I wish to share with you all, I was not raised Christian. I'm not even sure that my family even really celebrated Easter. I am pretty sure that we had Easter baskets, maybe sometimes. I kind of have a memory of this. Honestly, I don't remember the holiday having much meaning in my family when I was growing up. We did not, unlike Carrie's family, we did not eat candy. We were not allowed to have sugar in my house. So there were no chocolate bunnies, I'm sure of that. I do have a memory of dyeing eggs. And these would have been fresh eggs from the farm down the road. I remember my sister and I creating our own Easter egg hunts. We lived in the country, and I have a visceral memory as a child of being very small outside and walking through the wet grass in my bare feet. I remember the feel of the grass on the bottom of my feet, tickling up between my toes, getting caught on my ankles, and walking around searching for eggs. So we did do something celebratory in some way honoring Easter. Now, once I had my own child, I delighted in putting together a spring-themed Easter basket with daffodils and tulips and real grass. I loved going outside and cutting grass and putting it in the basket so it would be fresh. And of course, a new Beanie Baby each year. This was the years of Beanie Babies. I don't know if people remember that, but that was a big deal. So getting a new Beanie Baby was definitely part of the basket for my daughter. Then we would dress up, and we would go to the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Church where we lived in Knoxville, Tennessee. Often there was a children's chorus performance or a play during the time for all ages in the service. There was always special music. And afterward, there would be an Easter egg hunt for the kids. As a religious educator in Unitarian Universalist communities, I've taken the opportunity to teach children the Christian story of Easter, the story that I didn't learn when I was growing up, and the whole thing, including Jesus' death and resurrection. As I have taught children and some adults who, like me, were fairly unchurched, over the years I've had the opportunity and joy of learning along with them. Just as I've learned along with all of you today. So what Easter means to me today is layered, and it continues to grow and change as I continue to grow and change. And what I have come to today is that when we celebrate Easter as Unitarian Universalists, often we think about the life of Jesus and his teachings. But we also celebrate the idea that some things last long after a person is gone, like love. Easter is about the idea that your spirit can struggle through something really hard, so hard you think you're going to die, and come out on the other side, not just okay, but almost like a new person, transformed, like a butterfly. That's why I love celebrating Easter. It helps me remember that after some hard times, something new and wonderful can be born. Thank you.
Jude and Carrie and Megan have done a great job of talking about their experiences and telling us the story of Jesus and what it means to them. And what we know for sure is that Jesus lived this very full and exciting life. He had friends and family. He traveled with a big, bold message about love, and people followed him to hear it. And in the middle of this vibrant life, he was arrested and killed. It was a stunning development. Can he not stay? Is there? I have no idea what just happened. I think one of the things about this church, largely because of these gorgeous windows, is that this is a tourist site, and it's on lots of tours. And having nothing to do with Easter, I will tell you that when we were in Jordan and we were on a tour and we went to a mosque, for me it was the very worst day and the very worst thing that we did, because it felt so disrespectful to be tourists in someone's prayer space. And I have since then experienced that here as tourists come in and out. I don't know who that was or why he was walking in or why they asked him to leave. I do hope that we find out. We're going to go on. Jesus was arrested and killed. It was a stunning development. His friends who had devoted themselves to him were shocked, as people always are when someone dies unexpectedly. His friends and family spent the weekend gathering together, trying to process what happened, telling stories to comfort each other. They tried to regroup, catch their breath, figure out what was going on, if there were any implications for their own lives. I mean, they did what people do after someone dies, especially after someone dies in the middle of living a very big life, a life they were living well. What we can say is that his community brought him back to life, telling stories, remembering him well. That's a reasonable assumption, but I'm not really sure that the Easter story is meant to be reasonable. Easter is a fantastical story about a man who dies and comes back. Even bigger, it's a story about a love that never dies, about the cycle of life that brings us from winter into spring, from despair to hope. Why has this story been told for 2,000 years? Why is it the foundational mythology of a religion to which 1 billion people adhere? Because we know that life cycles. We know that winter descends and brings bitter cold. Trees become bare and the world feels bereft of life. But we know that no matter how long or brutal the winter was, spring inevitably returns. The birds come back and sing their familiar songs. The daffodils break through thawing earth, the lilacs bud again. This is the foundational story of human life, our shared metaphor. Life is followed by death, is followed by life. The Easter story is a joyful metaphor of more. It tells us to wait just a little bit, to let winter end, to let life cycle back around again, to let all that was dead come back to life, that we might experience the mystery and familiarity of resurrection. The same person doesn't come back in the same way we knew them. We keep them alive with our faithfulness to their memory. We keep them alive by living their values and bringing their visions to fruition. The love someone puts into the world stays alive long after they are gone. That's the Easter story. Jesus died. His exciting and meaningful life was cut short in an act of power and violence, and he was gone. But the love he brought here remains here. It lives on in all the people who carry out acts of mercy and kindness in his name and have continued to do that for millennia. Love is eternal. The spirit of life continues on when we live the ways of love. On Easter afternoon, let us remember to embody kindness, inclusivity, and mercy in our own full and exciting lives. And let us remember that life cycles and love never dies. There is a tradition in this church on Easter to get balloons and let them fly. As I understand it, it was done outside and balloons would go, and then at some point that tradition changed and it was moved indoors, and they would get stuck up on the ceiling till they came down. So for all kinds of reasons, we're not going to do that, but we are going to blow some bubbles. So we're going to move this party outside. Everyone's going to get up. We've got bubbles, we've got little bubbles, we've got big bubbles. Grab some bubbles and meet us outside. And the choir is going to help us sing as we go because, we don't want to be boring as we're walking out the door. So we're going to sing, Now Let Us Sing. Bubbles are on the left table there, and just meet me outside.